I will serve as moderator for the forum this evening. And before we go any further, I'd like to remind everyone in the room to turn off your cell phones for the forum. The forum tonight is sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Murfreesboro, Rutherford County, the Murfreesboro Communications Department, and Murfreesboro Cable Commission. It's my pleasure to welcome all of you to the forum. Tonight we will hear remarks from the State House District 49 candidates. Before introducing them, I would like to outline the protocol for the evening. Each candidate will be allowed 2 minutes to make opening remarks. When both candidates have completed their statements, I will ask several questions. Candidates have not been told the questions in advance. Each of them will be given 1 minute to answer each question. The candidates will then have 2 minutes to answer the last question and make their closing remarks. So let me introduce the two candidates. They are seeking election to State House District 49. This, of course, is an important position, and I want to give them an opportunity to address vital issues facing all of us. I also want to thank them for accepting our invitation to participate in this event. Sitting on my right and speaking first tonight is Mike Sparks, the incumbent, and on my left, Mike Williams.
Thank you.
Mr. Sparks, you may begin with your opening statement.
Yes, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters and Murfreesboro Channel 3 for this invitation tonight. I'm Mike Sparks. I serve the 49th District, which is areas of North Murfreesboro, Smyrna, and Laverne. Born and raised at the old Seward Air Force Base. I've been married to my wife, Felicia, of 25 years, have 2 sons, Preston and Peyton. I've attended MTSU, Motlow, Volunteer State Community College, served on the County Commission for 8 years, served on the Smyrna Planning Committee for 9 years. My mother's from Edinburgh, Scotland, and my father was served in World War II. I'm very thrifty. I just finished my latest book. It's called How to Do More with Less During Tough Times, and much of that is from my father growing up during the Great Depression and my mother growing up very poor in Scotland. I've run my own business since I left Nissan in 2000, and I don't take it lightly to serve in the 49th District as your representative. My office is always open. My number there is 741-6829. My cell is 525-3198, and I welcome any calls and concerns. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Williams.
Good evening. I'm Mike Williams. I'm running for the House of Representatives from the 49th District. And I too want to thank the League of Women Voters for inviting us to be here, and I want to thank you for being our moderator.
Welcome.
I was born in Springfield, Ohio, raised in Ohio, educated in several places, have a number of degrees. I'm a retired ordained minister. I'm also a retired college professor. I taught sociology and specialized in working with dying children. I am married. My wife is here tonight, which is nice. I have 2 children and 4 grandchildren, and we have 3 dogs, 2 of which are rescue dogs. I presently serve as on the Project Assistance Board for the City of Smyrna. I also serve as a volunteer chaplain at the Nashville International Airport. I work with various groups in advocacy ways, and I've served the Honors Flight program for our World War II veterans out of the airport. I've become a person who's fiscally conservative, yet responsive socially, and that contributes to my ability to work from the state legislature and deal with the needs of Tennesseans. The main issues I want to address are public education. Our children need to learn the basics of reading, science, math, physical and emotional development, building their self-esteem. All of those need to take precedence over standardized testing. Helping them reach their full potential as human beings is my goal. We need to have local government autonomy. The state legislature should never interfere with the authority of local governments, and it has. I want to see local governments have the first opportunities. And we need economic development that develops quality jobs with living wages. I'm Mike Williams, and I need your vote in the 49th House District. Thank you.
Okay. And now for the first question. which I will field initially to Mr. Williams. And that is, and both of you have alluded to this a little bit, but I want to ask more explicitly how your experiences have prepared you for this job.
This state legislature is characterized, in my opinion, by a limited vocabulary. And their vocabulary is limited to one word, and the word is no. I'm a candidate who believes in getting to yes. In all of my career and work, I've worked with competing interests to try to bring them together and reach an agreement. I'm of the belief that my life experience equips me well to work with the competing interests of the 49th District, help them to reach agreement on what we can do to make the district better. So I believe that helps me. Getting to yes is what matters.
Okay. Mr. Sparks?
Yeah, repeat the question, please.
Yes. How have your experiences prepared you for this job? I
Yes.
mean, you're already in the job.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I guess being born and raised right there in Smyrna, being born and raised in the district, I know the district. I hear the needs of the community. I hear the needs of the small business owners. As a small business owner, I see the pressure that small business owners are under today. I see more regulation on small businesses. I see higher taxes. I see tough times out there for a lot of folks, and that's what a lot of folks are telling me when they contact me. Serving on the county commission really gave me a lot of experience to see these issues. It gave me a time to kind of mature. Being on the planning committee, I've seen a lot of growth. I can remember having planning meetings. We'd start at 6 o'clock, and we wouldn't end till 10. We were growing really fast. There for a while, it got to where we didn't have much growth. But I see the needs and I see the pressures that not only the state's under, but also local governments can be under also.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Sparks, the top 5 budget priorities for Tennessee are often identified as health, higher education, K-12 education, public safety, and transportation. In what order would you rank these 5 priorities: health, higher education, K-12, public safety, and transportation? And what, if any, priority would you add to this list?
Yes, ma'am. Well, I met with some folks early this week, and I shared some of the needs that I see and a lot of the disconnect, and a lot of times there's no voices for many of these issues. A lot of folks that know me know that the crime and the drug problem is a big issue for me, and a lot of folks may not think it's an important issue for them, but it's an important issue on the state budget. Governor Haslam, meeting with him last year, our prison budget, for example, increased $46 million. That goes back to public safety. That goes back to education. That goes back to every area. I just met with Commissioner Varney, Senator Jim Tracy, and Senator Bill Kitchen today, and Mayor Ernest Burgess about these needs. And they were saying our prison budget could increase $60 million this year. So I'd say the drug problem it's something that affects everything. I serve as vice chairman of transportation, mass transit. I think we could improve on with an improved BRT system from Murfreesboro to Nashville.
Okay, Mr. Williams.
I rank 3 of them equally. I have 3 number ones. Health is essential. We have approximately 8,500 residents in the 49th District who, because of the state legislature's refusal to participate, are not receiving health benefits. Higher education is extremely important. More and more higher education will be the training center to prepare individuals for the jobs we hope to create, and certainly K-12. I rank those 3 number 1. Unfortunately, I have to rank transportation 4th, and I'm tired of that because my wife drives 45 minutes every day in the stupidity of I-24 and no rapid transit. And I believe that our safety officers, particularly our firemen and our police departments and our sheriff, are excellent and do an outstanding job. I rank them 5th, but they're not 5th in importance to me. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Williams, this question: although many healthcare rules are determined federally, how can we or should the state address its role in healthcare-related issues like Medicaid expansion?
The state's role in Medicaid expansion is to agree to participate in the federal program. and to develop rules that are accessible for people. And right now in the state of Tennessee, we don't even have a computer system that works well enough so people can sign up for it. So one of the roles of the state legislature is to make it accessible. Health care is always hinged on access, quality of care, and cost of care. The state may not be able to control the cost of care as well as the Fed can, but it can do things to make it accessible. And the Fed can also control quality of care. That's the first thing the state can do, those three things: access, and access to the care. Secondly, it can agree to participate in the expansion of Medicaid.
Thank you. Mr. Sparks.
Yes, well, one thing I want to remind the viewers is our country's $17.8 trillion in debt, $55,600 per person. We can't spend our way out of these problems. I believe that we can do better as a state. One of the first things I tried to put together when I was elected was just bring people to the table, people from whether it's Farm Bureau, Tennessee Medical Association, Tennessee Nursing Association, and talk about the affordability of just health care here in our state, the affordability of drugs. And really, there's not that much discussion on the table. But it's going to be difficult to fund Medicaid. Governor Bredesen had a difficult time with it. And yeah, the feds want to hand out the monies, but then at the end of the day, we're going to have to pay for it the next few years. And the monies just simply aren't there. Our state budget was $179 million in the hole. We did balance it, but it's going to be challenging. Challenging times are going to be even more so next year.
Thank you. And Mr. Sparks, what, if any, changes do you think are needed in the state's regulations covering the environment, including recycling? Well,
I've always recycled when I was a county commissioner, and I think we've improved a great deal since 2002. Mac Nolan, that's the solid waste director, and Mimi Kiesling and others that are involved do a good job, but we can do a lot better. There's often a disconnect that I see in government. I see a disconnect with county to city to even state government. I was at a meeting last week at Walter Hill talking about one of the permitting process over here with TDEC, and sadly there wasn't hardly anyone there. I think there was one citizen, and Mac was there. I was appreciate Mac being there, but I think the life of that landfill is only about 12 years. It's a big issue. It's going to be a big issue, and like I say, the cost to truck the trash out of Rutherford County is going to be insurmountable. And my community of north end of the county, we're downstream of the drinking water supply there. So it's a big concern for me. It's a big concern for others. But we can certainly do a lot better at recycling.
Okay. Mr. Williams.
I think we can do a tremendous job of improving the environmental issues by assisting local government in dealing with their problems. For example, earlier tonight we heard a discussion from one of the candidates for city council about reducing the landfill and the Walter Hill landfill. One way that the state legislature can help is to provide incentives to local government to control their environment in a better way. We can also make sure that already present laws that the Environmental Protection Agency and the Congress have passed and that the states have available to them are enforced. To put them aside for special interests who want to make a buck at the price of the health of our children is wrong. We have in place the implements necessary. As a state legislature, we can require and provide the funding for our already present capable laws to be enforced.
Thank you. And Mr. Williams, what are the central challenges that the state faces in aligning tax revenues with expenditures? And what steps would you take in the state legislature to ensure that they are aligned?
I'll repeat the question to make sure I heard both parts. What are the steps in
What are the central challenges that the state faces in aligning tax revenues with expenditures? And what steps would you take in the state legislature to ensure the alignment?
The central challenges I believe the state legislature faces in aligning revenue with expenditures is the state of Tennessee has historically been very proud that it doesn't want to raise revenue. And so as a state legislator, we need to help people see the need to raise revenue and provide services that are worth it. That's part of it. A second part of aligning revenue with the expenditure needs is to be careful and fiscally conservative so that the public can trust that when we ask for an increase in revenue, we're not going to waste it. And we're not going to take care of the good old boys that we've taken care of for years. But we're going to have competitive bidding, and we're going to make it available. Finally, I would want to educate the public that no state and no government can get along without revenue. There is no such thing as a tax-free democracy, and we need to be willing to accept that and pay that price.
Mr. Sparks.
Yeah, the central challenges to our budget. When I was first elected in 2010, one of my first bills was saving $30 million. The problem was it was freezing all the top officials' pay raises. Well, I really wasn't a popular guy, you know, and it was hard to get folks on board to support that. But it was $30 million worth of savings. When I was a county commissioner, it was difficult for me to try to get a raise for those at the bottom. Speaking of solid waste we were talking about earlier, you know, it may not be a big issue for those guys, but it goes back to quality of life. You know, we still have employees using outhouses in this county. Those employees don't have a voice. You know, I was trying to be that voice on the county commission. Sadly, they still use an outhouse today. But we just can't tax and spend our way out of problems. Like I mentioned, our state budget was $179 million in the hole. The challenges, you know, are great. And that's all the more reason to look for ways that we can run government in a more efficient manner and save tax dollars.
Thank you. Mr. Sparks, what do you believe the state's role should be in K-12 education?
Well, I think we ought to leave a lot of these decisions to the local school board and put that power back in the hands of the parents. Let the parents be more involved. A lot of these issues get to be controversial sometimes, whether we're talking about Common Core or park testing. You know, we hear from a lot of folks, parents need to be more involved in their kids' education, no doubt. You know, when you see the hardship on a lot of families and a lot of fathers aren't in the homes, I think it reflects back on our educational system. Many times parents are busy with their kids, you know, whether it's having to work another job or two and trying to be at ball team practices and so forth. Sometimes people may not be paying attention to some things they should be paying attention to.
Mr. Williams.
The state's role in education is, first of all, to provide adequate funding to the county commissions of all of our counties so that they can properly fund their local boards of education. Second role of the state is to quit dallying in determining what the curriculum will be, especially to stop allowing out-of-state influences to try to tell us we can't teach evolution or we can't teach sciences or we must teach God flies down every day at recess. Now, I certainly am not an atheist, but I do think the separation of church and state also applies to what we teach in our schools. The third thing the state can do is stay out of a teacher's classroom. No more standardized testing that's meaningless, but let teachers learn to develop their teaching method to the learning skills of their students and allow them to teach. And finally, the state can really concentrate on Common Core principles. The governor has agreed to it. 46 other states have agreed to it. It's time for us to agree to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Williams, how do you determine priorities when achieving all goals is not possible?
My personal beliefs in life will get in the way on that one when it comes up, because my priority is always what is going to help our people. That's the first priority, and because that's unrealistic in a legislative body, then the next priority is to understand who will benefit the most and who will be hurt the least by that legislation. And that's how I'll determine the priorities on it.
Okay. Mr. Sparks?
Repeat the question, please, ma'am.
How do you determine priorities when achieving all goals is not possible?
Well, it's difficult, and I'm reminded what Governor Haslam said when he came to our Rotary Club many years back. You know, as Knoxville mayor, he said he'd get phone calls about roads or about other issues at parks and other things. Everyone wants, that need is always something important to that person that calls. It's difficult. Government, and I'll quote what Governor Haslam said. I think it's a book by Thomas I believe it's Thomas Stanley, The World is Flat, where he said government's been in the business of giving things away. Now they're going to be in the business of having to take things away because the monies just aren't there. The business as usual is unsustainable. As I mentioned earlier, our federal debt is $17.8 trillion. You know, Proverbs says a wise man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. And I think it's a sad inheritance when we leave that much debt and there's not that much scrutiny on savings. I think we can do better.
Thank you. And Mr. Sparks, what do you feel is the number one issue facing Tennessee in the next 5 years, and how do you think we should address that issue?
Well, that's tough just to single out one issue, but I'm going to say it's the breakdown of the family. That issue, when I'm in Nashville, I don't see any lobbyists roaming the halls that are speaking up for the 70% fatherless rate in some of the communities that we see. I don't see anybody roaming the halls speaking up for those that are battling drug addiction or those that are incarcerated. Those aren't sexy issues that people ever want to run for re-election on. They're not. You know, you're going to run on lowering taxes, those issues. But every one of those issues affect families. They affect the state budget. And when I see TBI's budget being cut, and I see the problems that we're seeing, the prison budget increase, you can't have expenditures going this way and continue to cut. That's just not not sustainable. So it's tough to single out one issue, but I'm saying I'm going to go back again and say I think it's this drug problem. I think it's the breakdown of the family, and that's hard to try to legislate. It's hard to get fathers involved in their kids' education and get involved in their family.
Mr. Williams.
The state legislature can help strengthen our families by, first of all, providing adequate health care so that a parent is not afraid that their child's not going to get proper treatment, and so families aren't torn apart by debilitating illnesses that break their budget. Second thing the state can do is ensure that we have a living wage for every worker in Tennessee so that people do not have to depend on public support but have the opportunity to earn money on their own. And that means developing good economic development in our local communities. The third thing the state can do is to continue to try to find ways to improve higher education. The state will have better family life if they're free of the stress of economic problems and social problems. That freedom comes with a good education when we graduate people from high school who are either job ready or college ready. That's how I think the state can help.
Thank you. Mr. Williams, what is your vision for Rutherford County in 10 years?
My vision for Rutherford County in 10 years is that we will continue to have quality economic development, that we can step outside and breathe the air, that we don't have so much noise that we can't hear the birds or watch our dogs chase them and run into trees if you have dumb dogs. My vision of Rutherford County is we'll have a transportation system so that we don't have to pollute the air with gasoline fumes, and so that people don't have to spend 2 hours of their day that they could spend with their family trying to drive to work and back, not only in Nashville, but I came the long way downtown tonight because I didn't want to drive through downtown Murfreesboro. My vision of Rutherford County, most of all, is it will be a place where people can trust each other and most of all, feel safe. That's my vision.
Mr. Sparks.
Repeat the question again, please.
What is your vision for Rutherford County in 10 years? Take the long view.
My vision, well, as Vice Chairman of Transportation, I guess I'm looking at it from more of a transportation issue. Senator Bill Kitchen and I passed a bill called the Monorail Bill. Now, it's going to be difficult to fund, especially when the Federal Highway Trust Fund is basically insolvent right now. That's a serious issue when the federal government, we don't have the money to improve our bridges and roads. Serious problem. It's going to be difficult to fund a monorail, but also part of that monorail was a study looking at the busiest corridor in the state of Tennessee, which is the Murfreesboro to Nashville. The bus rapid transit system, in my opinion, is probably the most efficient way to go. That's one of my visions. The new Rocky Fork Road interchange is something that needs to be very aggressively pursued. Jefferson Pike widening, Motlow College, I'd like to see a third building, maybe even a fourth building over there. I think Smyrna, Laverne, and Murfreesboro do a great job with their parks department. But the issues out there, they're serious, and there's a lot of challenges ahead of us.
Okay, thank you. And this is the last question, so each of you will have 2 minutes to answer the question and give your closing remarks. And Mr. Sparks,
Yes, ma'am.
what makes you the candidate to vote for?
Well, I think I'm the candidate to vote for because I'm basically available. A lot of people have my cell number. I'm on Facebook under Michael Sparks. They can find me there. I'm caring, very compassionate. You know, I've been told by some folks, Mike, you hit that issue so hard, you ought to back off that drug issue. I said, but the issue is so serious. I had a mother just yesterday at a major corporation here that I toured, and she was executive secretary. She said, she come up to me, she said, Mike, she said, you know, her son had some serious problems, and she's afraid, I'm afraid I'm gonna lose my son. So that's a serious issue right there. That's something I want to tackle. It's tough. I had a law enforcement officer tell me, he said, Mike, always remember, you're going to be on the losing side of that issue. You're always going to be on the losing side. I don't want to be told that I'm going to lose and I can't do anything about it. I will do something about it. When I worked at Nissan, I always remember the term Kaizen. They instilled that in me working at Nissan. Kaizen is constant and never-ending improvement. Dr. Deming developed that system when they were rebuilding Japan. And the Japanese are very resourceful. They're successful. When they have a problem, they isolate what that problem is. They bring people to the table to try to find what they can do to solve that problem. Government, there's a severe disconnect. I use that term a lot, disconnect. And you know, I get frustrated with government. I think government can be run more like a business. I think they can practice a little bit of Kaizen, for example. My cell phone, 525-3198. I welcome any calls or texts. I welcome even constructive criticism. If folks want to disagree with me, they're welcome to call me or text me. Thank you.
Mr. Williams.
I believe I'm the candidate to vote for because I'm caring, I'm compassionate, I'm not afraid, and my vote is never and will never be for sale. I'm of the opinion that it takes vision to be a legislator, but it also takes the ability to make that vision visible. I think I can do that, and believe I can do that. Twice Mr. Sparks mentioned that we have the $179 million in the deficit in the state budget, which is true. We do. But we wouldn't have that deficit if we'd participate in Medicaid expansion. The government has guaranteed us for 5 years $2 million a day. It takes only 90 days by my math, which I think is pretty accurate, to wipe out the deficit. That's not vision. You see, our problem is the state legislators operate with an 8-track methodology, but we live in an iPod generation. And we need to be able to move forward and take risk and participate. The Highway Trust Fund that Mr. Sparks mentioned is insolvent. But it's not insolvent because it has no money. It's because the partisan politics in Washington has yet to pass the budget that allows for it. I think I'm the best to elect because I'm willing to step across the aisle. I'm willing to give up something to get something. I'm the candidate who wants to get people to yes. I have spent all my life negotiating different opinions from different people. If you want to know what that's like, try marriage counseling. It ain't fun, folks. But if you hang in there, it works. And I think somebody who spent his life working with people who have different interests and sometimes difficult people can make a very good state legislator in the state of Tennessee. I'm Mike Williams. I'm running for the 49th District, Smyrna, Laverne, Murfreesboro, and I want your vote, and I'll listen to all of you. Thank you.
Thanks to both of you.
Thank you.
Again, on behalf of the League of Women Voters, Cable Commission, and City Communications Department, I want to thank the candidates for participating tonight. I also want to acknowledge the Communications Department for their cooperation in presenting this program. And I want to remind all of you to go to the polls either for early voting beginning October 15 or on Election Day, November 4th, to exercise your right to vote. May we close with a round of applause for both candidates.
Thank you. And thank you so much.